we're saying Merry Christmas again.
The holiday season is in full swing, and with it comes one of my favorite traditions, the so-called War on Christmas, where the right claims that the left hates Christmas, and in fact, we just want to destroy this holiday in its entirety. Now, the way that they prove that a war on Christmas is actually a thing, and not just a meme at this point, is by pointing to usually obscure examples of people just bucking tradition, doing something different, or saying Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. But the problem with this War on Christmas narrative is that, on one hand, conservatives want to jerk themselves off and boast about the strides that they've made when it comes to the culture wars, but simultaneously, they still do want to feed into the conservative persecution complex and play the victims as much as possible. So on one hand, they still want us to think that there is a war on Christmas being waged by the left, but on another hand, Donald Trump wants you to think that he's been successful at winning the war on Christmas. In fact, this child told us in a Trump ad that now we can finally say Merry Christmas again.
Thank you, President Trump, for letting us say Merry Christmas again.
The war on Christmas is over. Or is it, though? Because conservatives who support Trump want you to believe that there still is a war on Christmas. So to recap, last year when we talked about the war on Christmas, Tucker Carlson and Dave Rubin were outraged that people on Twitter poked fun at Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Right.
And Steve Doocy of Fox News couldn't handle the fact that the Satanic Temple had the audacity to have one of their statues displayed next to a Christmas tree on public property. One person made gender-neutral gingerbread cookies, and that sparked quite the controversy, if you can imagine. And on top of that, this cat sat in a nativity scene where baby Jesus is supposed to sit. So, according to Fox News and conservatives everywhere, a war on Christmas is real, and yes, it still is being waged in spite of what Daddy Trump claims. But one thing that warring factions within the Republican Party can still agree on is that regardless if you think that the war on Christmas still exists or has already been won thanks to Donald Trump, they still all want to play the victim. So if you think that the war on Christmas has been won, don't worry, you can still find reasons why conservatives are and always will be the victims. If you're Donald Trump, even though you won the war on Christmas, there's actually a war being waged on a different holiday. Thanksgiving.
As we gather together for Thanksgiving, you know, some people want to change the name Thanksgiving. They don't want to use the term Thanksgiving. And that was true also with Christmas, but now everybody's using Christmas again. Remember I said that? But now we're going to have to do a little work on Thanksgiving. People have different ideas why it shouldn't be called Thanksgiving, but everybody in this room I know loves the name Thanksgiving, and we're not changing it.
Look, I am basically a full-blown SJW at this point. The only thing I haven't done yet is dye my hair blue, but I have never heard anyone in any left-leaning circle suggest that we should change the name of Thanksgiving. And apparently the stooges over at Fox News had no idea what the fuck Trump was talking about, too. Oh, there's an ad on my fireplace. But regardless, they still went along with this narrative that there's a war on Thanksgiving, like good little stooges and the bootlickers that they are. And you can see that they were really grasping in order to make Trump seem less crazy.
You know, over the last week or so, we've been talking about how there have been many different suggestions from people on the political left on more environmentally friendly ways to celebrate tomorrow's big day, Thanksgiving. Well, last night, the president was talking about somebody who apparently was talking about changing the name of the holiday. Watch.
As we gather together for Thanksgiving, you know, some people want to change the name Thanksgiving. They don't want to use the term Thanksgiving.
I don't think there's a huge push to change the name of Thanksgiving, is there?
Well, you know, I think it was in 2015, there was a rumor that Barack Obama wanted to change the name of Thanksgiving, but that was debunked. So perhaps what he's talking about is just all these stories about your carbon footprint and the amount of energy you use to travel over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house,
Well, when you could Skype her and not even show up at all. Just FaceTime her.
Right, just keep it.
Grandma wants to see you.
Oh, really?
She wants to go like that.
Not if it's going to hurt the environment.
Growing up, you're such a big boy.
Mostly Italians do that. Italians grab the cheek and twist.
I think that is universal grandma.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, grandma language. And that's maintaining the tradition, right? And I think the issue that a lot of people have with potentially changing that name is the fact that in that name, we're expressing gratitude and whatever historical connotations we can acknowledge. Right. It still doesn't take away from the fact that this is a day that we are to give thanks and gratitude for our loved ones and our blessings that we have.
Right. Maybe this would be the one year we have cranberry sauce that did not retain the shape of the can.
See, you got to actually make a dish. I got a cookbook.
That is what propaganda looks like when you know that your job is to do propaganda for Donald Trump, and even when you know what he said is totally false and you still got to go along with it. I mean, that's what you look like. You end up looking like a fool. But this narrative, it will never not be dumb. It's always going to be stupid. But regardless, even if there isn't necessarily widespread agreement that there is a war on Thanksgiving, well, there are still war stories from 2019 about the so-called war on Christmas. For example, Timmy Lorraine tweeted out a picture of Christmas trees at the White House from the prestigious Faithwire. We all know about this outlet, very, very respectable. And I guess that the reason why this is supposedly going to trigger the libs is because the trees have patriotic decorations. I can't see it based on, this picture. But she says, quote, "Finally, a first family that loves our country. That's what the left hates most of all."
Okay.
That's exactly why we hate Donald Trump, because he loves America. It's not because he got in office and his first major legislative accomplishment was to cut his own taxes. It's not because he's cutting food stamps. It's not because he's increasing wars. It's because he loves America. You nailed it, Timmy. Good job. But that's only tangentially related to the so-called war on Christmas. But regardless, there is one example of what I think could possibly be definitive proof that there is a war on Christmas. Because I think that you can probably file the Timmy Loren tweet under the war on Christmas has been one category. But the Daily Wire did manage to find a new way that liberals are waging a war on this precious holiday. And they came up with this. Introducing Target's gender-inclusive gingerbread Christmas sweater. This is definitive proof. So the Daily Wire's Paul Boyce reports, over at Target, the world-famous gingerbread man has been given a makeover in a newly featured gender-inclusive gingerbread Christmas sweater, available now for the price of $29.99. Behold. As the image shows, the new, quote, gender-inclusive gingerbread, fill in the blank, has no unique features, distinguishing itself from the average gingerbread man, and yet the Target online store literally bills it as the gender-inclusive gingerbread long-sleeve sweater, with absolutely no accompanying description as to what classifies it as gender-inclusive. It's as if the very utterance of gingerbread man or even gingerbread woman is in itself offensive. So what do we get? A sweatshirt with a character that looks exactly like the gingerbread man, but is instead described as gender inclusive. Target is also not the only establishment catching wind of this new trend. According to Mirror, a coffee shop called The Tannery in Auckland, New Zealand, decided to put its own brand of gender inclusive cookie by calling it the gender neutral person. Last Christmas, an elementary school principal out of Nebraska also argued that students should use the term gingerbread people instead of gingerbread men, as well as the term snow people. I mean, how can you see evidence like this and deny that, there's an all-out assault happening on Christmas? Trump claims he won the war on Christmas, but how can he say that when there are gender-inclusive gingerbread cookie sweaters? Now, if you haven't already noticed, the sweater is unisex. This sweater is unisex, meaning it can be worn by men or women. It's not the gingerbread person, if you will, who is gender neutral. The sweater is gender neutral. It can be worn by anyone. That's what all the fuss is about. Now, before writing that article, Paul initially tweeted about this, and it didn't get much traction on Twitter, but it did get ratioed to oblivion by a bunch of lefties basically calling him a snowflake. This person says, gender inclusive equals unisex. Find actual stuff to be outraged about. I mean, even if this had been as you assumed, your outrage would be ridiculous. It's just a unisex sweater. Calm down. LOL, you baby. Demanding all your cartoon characters have visible genitalia is a bold stance. By the way, gender inclusive refers to the sweater itself, as in either a man or a woman can wear it. It's not uncommon for clothes to be labeled that way. When I was a kid, all gingerbread men had dongs. But Paul did have backup from some conservatives. This one at least chimed in and said, "That's a gingerbread man on a shirt." But then the left fought back, saying, "Does your sweater have a hairy dick and balls on the gingerbread man, or a hairy pussy?" So basically, we're seeing a war actually being fought with the left and the right going at it. And I just want to put this all into perspective for you. The war on Christmas started off with people on the right accusing the left of wanting to destroy Christmas by being too overly PC, too hypersensitive. And now it's come to a place where the left is making fun of the right, and we're saying that they're obviously being too hypersensitive and too big of snowflakes. Everything has been flipped. Making fun of snowflakes has led to snowflakery. And yes, it is because of clickbait, and the war on Christmas is something that is sensational. But with that being said, the right, in denouncing the snowflakery supposedly of the left, turned into gigantic snowflakes themselves. And I'm sure that the irony will be lost on them.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.